Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, and the sun is just gone. Not for an eclipse, not for a storm, but for an entire year. In the year 541 AD, this exact nightmare became a reality. A suffocating, unnatural darkness swallowed the earth, triggering an apocalyptic plague that erased 50 million people from existence. For 15 centuries, history blamed the wrath of God, failed medicine, or pure bad luck. But they were looking in the wrong place. The true killer wasn't a disease. It was an invisible force lurking 11,000 kilometers away. A global monster whose fingerprints were only just discovered, frozen deep inside the ice sheets of Greenland. This isn't just a history lesson. It is a modern, forensic cold case. And as you're about to see, the countdown to it happening again has already started. This is the untold story of the year the world died. It was 541 AD, the year that the sun forgot to rise. Not metaphorically, literally. In Constantinople, the greatest city on earth, home to nearly 1 million souls, the impossible happened. One day, the sky simply changed. Clouds rolled in, thick, unnatural clouds, dark clouds. The kind that make you hold your breath because something feels wrong. People looked up and thought, heavy rain is coming. But the rain never came. Days passed. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The sun was still hidden. By the 4th week, Constantinople wasn't just dim, it was gone. The city existed in permanent twilight, as if it had been swallowed by an endless night. The kind of darkness that makes people check their clocks in the middle of what should be afternoon, wondering if they've gone mad. Markets closed. Children stopped playing outside. Priests began praying not for rain, but for salvation. Emperor Justinian stood in his palace and watched the darkness through his window, and even he didn't understand what was happening. But that was only the warning. Then the deaths began, and they didn't stop. At first, it was random. A merchant here, a baker's wife there. Nothing that seemed connected, nothing that made sense. But then it accelerated. People who were healthy in the morning were dead by sunset. A young soldier would collapse during duty. An old woman would simply fall in the street. Within hours, sometimes within minutes, they would be gone. The city started to transform into a graveyard. Mass graves were dug, then larger mass graves. Then they ran out of places to bury the dead. The smell permeated every street. Some days the death toll in Constantinople alone reached 10,000 people per day. The Byzantine army, the most powerful military force on earth, was helpless. And then the emperor fell ill. Even Justinian, the man who ruled the known world, fell victim to whatever this was. When the news spread that the emperor himself was dying, panic transformed into hysteria. If the most powerful man alive couldn't be saved, what hope did anyone have? The entire continent was falling into chaos. But here's what terrified people the most. Nobody knew why this was happening. The priests said it was God's judgment. The doctors said they had no explanation. The emperor had no answers. And worst of all, it was spreading. Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Morocco, Syria, Iran. One by one, region after region was consumed. Everywhere the dark clouds went, death followed like a shadow. Some reports described strange summer snowfalls snowfalling in June, killing crops and freezing animals. Famine began alongside the plague. People died from hunger. People died from cold. People died from the mysterious disease. It was as if the world itself was ending, and nobody understood why. Historians would later call it the Plague of Justinian. It would claim an estimated 50 million lives, possibly more. Nearly half the population of the Eastern Roman Empire was erased. In some cities, 90% of the population was gone. For over 1,000 years, nobody knew what caused it. Nobody understood why the sky had gone dark. Until, fast forward to 2013. A team of researchers became obsessed with a question that had haunted history for 1,500 years. What really happened in 541 AD? They didn't start by studying Constantinople. They didn't begin in any of the plague-affected regions. Instead, they flew to Greenland, a place so remote, so hostile, so utterly inhospitable that most humans would never choose to go there voluntarily. In Greenland, even in summer, the temperature barely climbs above freezing. There are no trees, no real soil, just ice. Endless frozen ice stretching to the horizon. But the scientists knew something that most people don't. Greenland's ice is a time capsule. Every year, fresh snow falls in Greenland and doesn't melt. It just accumulates, layer upon layer, compressing into ice. And here's the crucial part. As the snow falls, it traps everything in the atmosphere. Dust, ash, gases, particles. All of it gets frozen, preserved, locked away in ice. Scientists believe Greenland's ice contains climate records going back 100,000 years. Each year's snowfall is a distinct layer about 5 centimeters thick. So, if you want to know what was in the atmosphere 1,500 years ago, you just need to drill down about 75 meters and extract the ice core from that time period. The team drilled. They extracted cores more than 100 meters long, containing over 2,000 years of preserved data. Then they took these ancient ice samples to the laboratory, and they tested them for electrical conductivity, a method that reveals what gases and chemicals are trapped inside. The results made them stop in their tracks. Between 500 AD and 600 AD, there was a massive spike in sulfur levels. A spike so dramatic, so unusual, that it could only mean one thing. Something catastrophic had happened. Sulfur. That's the key. That's the answer that's been hidden for 1,500 years. When sulfur is released into the atmosphere in massive quantities, it combines with moisture to form sulfuric acid clouds. These clouds are so thick, so dense, that they block out the sun. And if you breathe the air beneath them, if you're exposed to sulfur dioxide, you die. But sulfur doesn't just appear in the atmosphere randomly. There's only one natural event that can release that much sulfur at once. Only one force on Earth powerful enough to do this. A volcanic eruption. But not just any eruption, a massive one. The kind that changes the course of human history. And the scientists found it. Lake Ilopango in El Salvador, over 11,700 kilometers away from Constantinople. Beneath that lake, about 1,500 years ago, a volcano erupted with such violence that it sent massive amounts of volcanic ash and sulfuric gases into the upper atmosphere. The ash and gases traveled, they spread. They circled the earth, blocking out the sun over Constantinople and beyond. The plague that killed 50 million people came from a volcano on the other side of the world. This is where it gets terrifying. Because this didn't happen just once. Volcanologists have found evidence that this has occurred multiple times throughout human history, and it will happen again. Right now, at this very moment, there are active volcanoes all around the world, all of them unpredictable. Mount Vesuvius in Italy, Mount Fuji in Japan, Mount Merapi in Indonesia, dozens of others. And science still cannot predict when they will erupt. The question isn't if the next catastrophic eruption will happen, it's when. And when it does, will we be ready? If this story captivated you, hold on until the next archive.